Hi there, and welcome back to Forever Strong Seniors. I want to start today's video with a question that might hit close to home. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you started losing pieces of yourself along the way? Let me tell you a story. Not just any story, but one that reflects what so many people over 60 have quietly gone through. It's the story of Arthur, a 72-year-old man who believed that love meant giving everything, even if it meant giving too much. Arthur had been widowed for a long time. He had 2 grown children, a cozy little home in a quiet neighborhood, and a garden he took great pride in. But even with all of that, the loneliness crept in after sunset. The house, once filled with the hum of conversation and the clinking of dinner plates, now echoed with silence. Then one day, a woman named Mary Ann entered his life. She was vibrant, a few years younger, full of laughter and stories about her travels. At first, Arthur felt alive again. He began dressing nicer, tending his garden with more joy, even humming while cooking breakfast. Companionship. It was like sunshine after a long winter, and he cherished every moment of it. But slowly, things began to change. Mary Ann, perhaps unknowingly, started demanding more. She wanted Arthur to sell off his antique collection. It took up too much space, she said. She wasn't fond of the garden, either. It attracted bugs. And she didn't like how often he called his daughter, believing it was time for him to move on from old attachments. Arthur, not wanting to rock the boat, gave in. He sold the antiques. He stopped gardening. He kept his calls brief. He told himself it was just compromise. But inside, he was shrinking. Little by little, the man he used to be was fading. It wasn't until he found himself standing alone in the garage one rainy afternoon, staring at the empty shelves where his cherished vinyl records once sat, that he realized something was wrong. Not with Mary Ann, but with how much of himself he had given away. That moment, the quiet recognition that love should never come at the cost of self-respect, was a turning point. Arthur didn't speak to anyone about how he felt at first. He simply sat with the realization that somewhere along the way, he had stopped being himself. He had let go of the small joys that once defined his days, not because he wanted to, but because he thought it would make someone else stay. And this, dear friends, is something many seniors go through, often in silence. You see, after a certain age, we are often told, directly or indirectly, that we should be grateful for any affection we receive, that we should settle, that finding love later in life is rare. And if we do find it, we must protect it at all costs, even if that cost is our peace. But let me be clear, love should never be something that empties you. It should be a safe space where you're celebrated, not corrected, where your past is respected, your routines are honored, and your voice is heard, not just tolerated. Arthur tried to make things work for a while longer. He invited Mary Ann to his favorite park, hoping she'd enjoy the quiet nature walks. But she found it boring. He tried cooking her the meals his late wife once loved, simple dishes, full of warmth and memory, but she preferred expensive restaurants. He even gave up his Sunday chess games at the senior center because she said it was a waste of time. It wasn't that she was cruel. No, not at all. She simply saw the world differently. But Arthur, desperate not to be alone, kept bending. That's when he began to lose sleep. He felt anxious even during peaceful moments, worried about saying the wrong thing or doing something she might frown upon. His daughter, Claire, noticed during a phone call that his voice had lost its spark. He didn't laugh as much. He didn't talk about his garden anymore. That's when she gently asked, "Dad, are you still you?" Those 5 words echoed in his heart for days. Because the truth is, in love, or any relationship, we must never give up the core of who we are. Compromise is healthy, but losing your essence is not. One Sunday morning, Arthur sat alone at the park bench where he used to meet his chess friends. He hadn't been there in months. The trees still swayed the same way. The air still smelled of blooming jasmine, and something inside him whispered, "This is home." That was the day he made a decision, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. He had to choose himself again. He had to find joy in solitude before he could ever find peace in companionship. So, he had a gentle conversation with Mary Ann. He told her that while he cared for her deeply, he could no longer continue losing parts of himself. He needed time to reconnect with who he was. And to her credit, Marianne understood. Perhaps she had sensed it too, that the connection they shared, while beautiful in moments, wasn't built on mutual understanding. Arthur didn't jump back into social life immediately. Instead, he took slow steps. He returned to gardening, this time with lavender and daisies, plants that reminded him of simpler times. He called his daughter every Sunday, no longer cutting conversation short. He even brought out his old vinyl player, letting the familiar crackle of jazz fill the house again. One evening, while sipping tea on his porch, Arthur smiled. Not because someone else made him feel loved, but because he finally remembered how to love himself again. That's the lesson I want to share today, especially for those of us in our 60s, 70s, or even 80s. Love, whether romantic or otherwise, should never demand that you dim your light. If a relationship asks you to shrink, to be quieter, to erase your history, it's not love. That's fear disguised as affection. In every stage of life, but especially in our later years, we need connection that uplifts, not love that asks us to become less. And I know, it's easy to say these things from the outside, but when you're in it, when loneliness knocks on your door each night, the warmth of companionship feels like a gift too precious to risk. But here's the thing, your peace, your passions, your dignity, those are not negotiable. You don't have to trade them for company. A real relationship, even in old age, feels like freedom, like being fully yourself, just with someone beside you who smiles at that version of you, not when they try to reshape. So, if you've ever felt like Arthur, if you've compromised so much that you barely recognize yourself anymore, I want you to take a quiet moment today. Ask yourself gently, am I still me? And if the answer is no, it's never too late to start coming back to yourself. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away, not out of bitterness, but out of the deep understanding that self-respect is the foundation for any meaningful connection. As Arthur began rebuilding his days with things that truly mattered to him, something beautiful happened. He didn't just feel less lonely, he felt whole. And that wholeness, my friend, is something no one else can give you. You build it slowly, with every decision to honor who you are. Now, in the next part of our story, we'll explore how Arthur learned to embrace solitude, not as emptiness, but as a rich space for growth, healing, and rediscovery. We'll talk about the unexpected joys of being alone, and how choosing yourself doesn't mean choosing to be lonely. Stay with me, because the next part might just be the reminder you didn't know you needed. After Marianne left and the house returned to its familiar stillness, Arthur thought he would feel lonely again. But something was different this time. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't adjusting himself for anyone. He wasn't second-guessing his words or habits. He was just himself. It started with small things. Arthur returned to his Sunday chess games. The group welcomed him back with warm smiles and lighthearted teasing, as if no time had passed at all. Sitting among old friends, laughing over a well-played match, reminded him how much joy had always been within reach, if only he hadn't turned away from it. He also started volunteering once a week at the local library. It was a quiet place, filled with stories and people who, like him, cherished simple, meaningful moments. One afternoon, a woman named Helen asked if he could help her print out a document. She was polite, soft-spoken, and had the kind of warmth that didn't demand anything in return. They chatted for a while, nothing flirtatious, just two people exchanging gentle conversation, with no masks or expectations. That interaction stayed with Arthur, not because he wanted another relationship, but because it showed him something important. Genuine connection doesn't drain you. It doesn't rush. It doesn't ask you to change. One of the biggest myths about growing older is that being alone means being lonely. But as Arthur discovered, solitude can be incredibly healing, if you let it be. It gives you time to think, to reconnect with long-lost passions, to sit quietly with your memories and let them guide you instead of haunt you. He began writing again, something he hadn't done since his 40s. Just small reflections at first about his wife, his childhood, the way the morning light hit his kitchen table. Over time, these turned into full journal entries. Writing helped him process not only his past, but also what he wanted from the years ahead. There's a common saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's the truth, especially for seniors. After years of giving, to children, to careers, to partners, many older adults find themselves feeling emotionally drained. That's why rediscovering your identity, your voice, and your peace is not selfish. It's necessary. Arthur realized this one afternoon while sitting on his porch with a cup of tea, listening to the gentle rustle of leaves. He felt calm, not because someone else made him feel that way, but because he created a life that no longer required him to bend to fit in. He fit perfectly in his own space. And that, dear friends, is the heart of the third lesson in Arthur's story. Alone doesn't mean unloved. And solitude, when embraced, becomes the soil where self-worth grows again. If you've recently ended a relationship or you're living alone, I want you to hear this. It's okay. It's okay to take your time. It's okay to say no to things that don't nourish your spirit. And it's okay to enjoy your own company. In fact, doing so might just be the most powerful thing you can do in this chapter of your life. Don't rush to fill the silence. Listen to it. Don't panic if no one calls today. Call yourself to peace. And if, someday, love finds its way back to you, whether through friendship, companionship, or something deeper, you'll be ready. Not because you need it, but because you've already built something steady and strong within yourself. Arthur never went searching for love again, but love, in a different form, found its way back, not through romance, but through connection, through people who valued him for exactly who he was, not who they wanted him to be. He became a mentor to a younger neighbor learning to garden. He read stories to kids at the library on Saturday mornings. He even reconnected with his son, who had moved across the country, through long, heartfelt letters and occasional visits. And that leads us to something important we'll talk about in the final part of this story. The 5 life lessons Arthur learned on his journey. Lessons about love, self-worth, and finding joy after heartbreak. These aren't just his lessons. They're reminders for all of us, especially as we age, to protect our peace, value ourselves, and never stop growing. So stay with me for the next part, where we'll gather all the pieces of Arthur's journey and lay them out like stepping stones. You'll walk away with clarity, comfort, and maybe, just maybe, a renewed sense of how strong you truly are. So here we are, at the end of Arthur's story, but perhaps at the beginning of something important for you. Because what Arthur went through, many of us have faced or will face in one form or another. The slow fading of our identity in the name of love, the aching quiet of solitude, and finally, the rediscovery of self-worth. Now, let's gently walk through the 5 life lessons Arthur learned, the kind that stay with you, not just for a season, but for life. Lesson 1. Love should never cost you your dignity. Arthur thought love meant giving endlessly, sacrificing without pause. But real love, the kind that nurtures you, will never ask you to abandon yourself. If being loved requires you to be smaller, quieter, or different just to be accepted, it isn't love. It's control wrapped in affection. Remember this. You are worthy of love that honors your full, authentic self. Lesson 2. Pay attention to the quiet loss of joy. Sometimes, it doesn't happen in one big moment. It happens when you stop playing your music, when you cancel a game night, when you no longer laugh during your favorite show. Arthur lost pieces of himself slowly, and he didn't even notice until joy felt foreign. Don't let someone's presence cost you your light. Hold on tightly to the things that make you feel alive. Lesson 3. Solitude isn't the enemy. Neglecting yourself is. Being alone isn't a punishment. In fact, it can be one of life's greatest gifts. Arthur discovered that solitude offered him the space to breathe again, to plant new seeds, to rebuild routines that felt like home. If you're living alone, embrace the freedom it brings. Make your space yours. Make your schedule yours. Make your heart yours again. Lesson 4. Your past has value. Don't erase it to fit someone new. Arthur was made to feel that the life he had before Marianne was something to push aside. But our memories, our traditions, our little habits, they are sacred. If someone cannot accept the stories you carry, they do not deserve to write the next chapter with you. Love that lasts is love that welcomes your whole journey, not just your present. Lesson 5. Peace is a form of love too, and often the most important one. At first, Arthur chased companionship. Later, he chose peace. And in that peace, he found connection in ways he didn't expect. Through gardening, through laughter with old friends, through letters to his children. You don't need a partner to feel whole. You just need a life that feels honest and calm. Now, maybe you've seen yourself in Arthur. Maybe you've let go of something you once loved just to keep someone near. Or maybe you're in a quiet season, wondering if solitude means your best days are behind you. But I want you to know, you are not behind. You are becoming. Every time you choose your well-being over fear of being alone, you are building a life rooted in strength. Every time you honor your needs, even when it's hard, you are rewriting your story with grace. Arthur didn't end up with some fairy tale romance. He ended up with something better, a life that felt like his again. So as we close this chapter together, I invite you to ask yourself one simple question. Have I been choosing others at the cost of myself? If the answer is yes, then take this as your gentle reminder. It's never too late to come home to yourself. And I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship to protect your peace? What helped you heal? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I read every word, and your story might just be the light someone else needs right now. If this video touched your heart, be sure to check out the other stories we've shared on this channel. They're created with care, especially for people like you, resilient, wise, and still growing. You are never too old to choose yourself again. Thank you for being here with me today. And remember, on Forever Strong Seniors, you're never alone.